Dave.
Moving back to tight end, why do you feel like that was the best move for your team?
First off, Cade, I think, always saw himself as a linebacker growing up, and when he came here, and then he put a whole year of work into playing tight end, and the way it played out in the Rose Bowl is we were down some linebackers, and I think when he got over there, he realized that he loves being over there at linebacker because he can play with that edge. So at the end of the day, it was really up to him. We same thing when Steele went over to defense. We want guys to own it, and I think he saw, moving forward, he's got a huge ceiling at tight end. I think when you look at the work he's put in the past year and his skill set, he's got a chance to be a really good tight end. And I think the thing he would tell you is he wants to bring that same defensive mentality to the offense, and he could do that. He's strong, he's powerful, he's really athletic, got really good ball skills. Was a really good high school basketball player. So. He's back over at tight end and had a good couple practices.
Entering spring on either side of the ball or anything, what was maybe your biggest concern? I know it's only been 6 practices, but has that been alleviated at all?
What part? Oh, any concerns?
Any concern that you had? What was your maybe biggest concern entering spring, and do you feel better about whatever that was now?
I think it's, first off, you're putting in a new defense, so that's certainly a part of it. And I really have been impressed with the energy over there, with the teaching that's going on. We still have a long way to go, but it's been, for the first 6 practices, we're off to a very good start there. I think the guys are playing with confidence. But also just the physicality that those guys have worked the last 7 weeks to get in better shape. They're stronger, they're more powerful. So that part's good, and they're playing with confidence right now. And just before that, just the other one's the offensive line, just because it's a new coach in there with Coach Fry, and just kind of getting that continuity and depth in the O-line. So yeah, no, it's all good, all good. Yeah, you're out.
Ryan, I guess that's where I was going to go next with the offensive line.
Yeah.
With Jim having the philosophy of not really tackling, you guys not wanting to do too much physical, is there like a certain select things that you really want to see accomplished from Justin in that unit this spring, or is it just kind of taken by day?
We'll tackle some this spring. I think, just philosophically, some of the drills that that have kind of happened over the years, sometimes we can get into bad habits. We decide we're going to tackle to the ground. We just want to go 11 on 11. And so we'll get a chance to do that. But look, going back to the offensive line, I think, you want to find out, that you have 5 guys, and then you want to find 6, you want to find 7, you want to find 8. And then it's just really a couple things you're looking at. One is, in the run game, can we knock back the line of scrimmage? And can we get physicality and movement? And then in the pass game, firming up the protection. And we're going against very good guys on either side of the ball every day, so you're getting challenged, which is great. I think our defensive line has been challenged in the offense, and vice versa. So you just kind of want to see how you stack up against each other every day in practice, how you compete. And I think, guys have a certain amount of talent. We have pretty good talented guys up there, but it's the discipline and skill that you have to create over time. And, we'll look up in another couple of weeks and kind of see where we're at. We're in the middle of it right now. We're asking each guy to, figure out, what are your strengths and weaknesses? What are the things you need to work on? And by the end of each week, have you addressed those things? And then you kind of come up for air and figure out what the next challenge is as an individual. And then as we get closer to preseason, we start to come together a little bit more as a group. But right now the focus is on getting better individually.
You guys have a lot of continuity on that side of the ball with the coaching staff, but is it almost refreshing to have a new voice in there trying to help lead the run game to where you guys want it to be, since it wasn't exactly where you needed to be last year? I
think when you look at year in, year out, there's always that balance that you're talking about of continuity and guys understanding where you want to be and the experience, but then also having fresh ideas and a fresh point of view. And a good mix of that is healthy, I think.
Third row left, Dan Hope. It's 11 Warriors. You follow up on Cade, the tight end position as a whole. Just where do you feel about where that group is right now? Is there anyone else at that position that's starting to come along this spring?
I think they're all getting better. It's still only 6 practices in, but really it's the same group as we had last year. Mitch is out for the spring, so we don't have him, but it's the same group just minus Ruck, and so the younger guys got to step up and start to continue to build depth in there, and then we got to get a starter in there and get Cade going and get Joe going and get G going and see how they can fit into this thing. But But we're not there right now in terms of packages. We're more about just trying to develop individually and trying to figure out what their skill sets are. And then as we start to, go closer to the preseason, we start to put those packages together based on the teams we're playing.
Tanner McAllister, he lost his black stripe. What have you seen from him, and are there any other newcomers that have started to catch your eye?
Well, I think first off, what Tanner's done is he understands the defense. He's almost like a coach out there, kind of like one of those old player coaches out on the field, and he's been able to help guys with that. And his experience really shows up on the field because he can recognize what's how teams are trying to attack him, and he feels comfortable in this style of defense. Obviously, he's got years of experience in it. Other newcomers, I mean, there's a bunch. There's a bunch that have flashed. If I say one, I'm going to forget two or three, and they'll get upset. So I think that hopefully we'll get some of the more of these black stripes off pretty soon.
Second row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
With the offensive line, obviously you guys started 4 tackles last year. Is there something to improving the run game, just having guys who are just more natural guards at that position, whether it's Matthew Jones?
Well,
Jackson,
yeah, I think that Paris, is suited best for tackle, but I think Thayer, you'll see him play guard and tackle in the NFL. So I think that was, fine, and I thought that Thayer did a good job there, and I think Paris did a good job at guard too, and some of the stretch schemes that we did, he's athletic and that worked out okay, but having Matt and Donovan in there at guard now, like you said, a little bit of different skill set and just size in there, and so. I do think in a perfect world you'd like to have a little bit more squared away, thicker guards to be able to handle some of the bull rushes and things you do against bigger size guys inside. But that doesn't necessarily mean it happens, but that's the idea. And I think those guys are going to give us something inside this year, that's what we're counting on.
You guys use Donovan sometimes as like a 6th offensive lineman. Just what do you guys like about him? When you recruited him, just can we talk about him a little bit?
Yeah, Donovan's very athletic. He's very smart, great young man. And now it's about acquiring that discipline and skill, skill to play the guard at the highest level. And he can do it. And certainly he's athletically very, very gifted and very smart, very conscientious. So the more reps he gets, the better he's going to be.
Kate Stover, is that permanent now? Is he just sticking that tight end completely? Or is he
You just never say never, and that's what I told him. But right now his focus is on tight end.
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Brian, you obviously have 2 cornerbacks that started last year coming back. We heard about some of the young guys towards the end of the season behind the 2 starters. What have you seen from that group, and how do you feel about the depth that you're building there?
I feel good about it. We'll have to watch the film and continually see where it's at. Anytime you lose 2 really good players on the outside like that, that's a lot of production to replace. And while guys are talented, they're going to have to step up and make those plays. I mean, those are 2 players that made a lot of clutch catches, and you counted on them to make really tough plays and third downs and when it mattered most. And we think that we have some really good candidates to go, push forward to be those type of guys. But we'll see. It's going to take a lot of hard work, and it's not just going to happen over 4, 5, 6, 7 practices. It's going to take time, and it's going to kind of develop throughout the season. But I think we do have some really talented guys in that room, and the depth is being built.
We saw Josh Proctor doing a little bit more than at least we've seen. How is he coming along, and what do you like from what he's able to give this spring?
I mean, I wish he could do more. He's just kind of getting started and getting moving around out there, with individual drills. And it's been a long road for him to come back from, and that's not easy. He's had a few injuries in his career, so. We wish he could do more right now, but he's kind of inching his way back. But that's okay. It's a long way to August.
Second row left, Bill Landis, The Athletic.
Brian, with Donovan, was he at any point last year close to being in a spot where you could rotate him in the way you guys rotated Matt Jones in at guard, or was he quite not ready for that yet?
I would say he was probably 7 or 8 last year. And athletically, we felt great about putting him in a game, but just the experience of a true freshman who came in during the summer, not having a full year, that's a tough ask. Not saying he couldn't have done it, but that's why we kind of had him do some of that on the ball tight end stuff, because we felt like there's something there, but we didn't want to overwhelm him with too much stuff.
And I think maybe on the outside there was a lot of people wondering whether or not DeJuan Jones might have tried to go to the NFL after just 1 year of starting here last year. How much conversation was there about that in here? And now that he is back, what's the next step for a guy like that?
Yeah, there was conversation in the building. I know there was conversation outside the building, and you just identify what where you think you could go in the draft, and then you decide whether that makes sense for you and your future. And he wanted to come back and be a first or second rounder. That's his goal, and so he's been challenged with a set of things that he needs to get done if he wants to get there. I don't think there's any question he has the ability and he has the talent to be one of the better tackles in the country. Now, whether he is or not, there's certain things that he's going to have to get accomplished here in the offseason and then during next season to get to that point. And consistency is going to be one of them. But he's done some good things, and I think he knows what those things are that he needs to get done.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Letterman row.
Ryan, where do you all think Mitchell Melton fits best?
Well, we've kind of moved Mitchell around a little bit, and he's been up front a little bit more, and his pass rush skills have really been shown here in the first 6 practices. So that's been good. We'll kind of continue to figure that out, but he has shown us that he can play up in a line of scrimmage and be a threat.
Maybe they're not related at all, but is the fact that you can move Cade, move Mitchell around a sign that there's more depth at linebacker than maybe it seems coming into spring, or are those just unrelated situations?
No, I think when you look at our numbers, there is a little bit of logjam at linebacker, especially being in the 4-2-5. And because of that, you've seen a couple, you see Cade move. Not that was the reason why he moved, but, you see a little bit of movement there. You saw Mitchell move, and because we do have a lot of linebackers right now on the roster. And so guys are trying to find their role on the team. And, I think that's, again, the part of a college coach is you have to figure out how do you best put guys into spots to be successful. And I think we've done that with those 2 guys.
Second row middle, Nathan Barrett, Cleveland.com.
Going back to the guards, with Matt Jones, this situation he's been in the last couple of years, having to really compete for a job in the preseason or maybe settle for kind of a part-time job, just for any athlete, I guess, now that it sounds like he's kind of been anointed, for lack of a better term, like he's going to be a starter right now. He's established as a starter, it sounds like. Does that help a guy at this stage of his career going into a season, letting him focus, letting him sort of take that by the reins in a different way?
I think everybody's different. I do think in the offensive line, having some chemistry and being at a spot and having the guy to your right and left being the same guy over and over again does bring a level of consistency that can help a player. Some guys do better when they're in competition every day, having a guy push them. Some guys, once they've been put into that role and they know that that's their role and they don't have somebody looking over their shoulder all the time, they feel like they can focus and do a little bit better there. I think everybody's different. We're hoping that this is a great opportunity for Matt. He's, like you said, he's been thrust into this role, and so far he's been doing a great job. But he's got to keep coming and keep growing because, like every position at Ohio State, the expectation is that you're the best in the country at what you do.
Switching over to defense, did you guys see something different from Teron Vincent in the Rose Bowl, and does that raise the expectations at all for what he can do this year? He had really good games. He flashed at times, and he has a lot of ability. And he's got off to a really good start here this spring, and I think he's got some leadership skills about him. So if we're going to get to where we need to be on defense, he's going to be a big part of it. When you say he's had a really good spring, what were you seeing out of him?
I just think his work ethic, his attitude, his production on the field, his work in the weight room over the last, I guess it's 9 weeks now. Gotten stronger, gotten faster, another year under his belt of experience and approaching the game, and all those things matter.
Over here far right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
Is there more opportunity to tinker in the spring, or is there such a, emphasis on fundamentals that you don't have time to do any of that?
No, I think both. I think you have to put the emphasis on fundamentals, but you can also take a look at different things. And sometimes you take a look at it and you're like, okay, this is going to take off. And then there's other things that you project that you may want to look into that you just scrap them real early, and it doesn't work that way. So I think schematically you can do some of those things. You can move guys around and look at those things, but quickly you want to make a decision whether that's a good investment or not, because you only have so much time to invest in each guy and each scheme and those type of things. But this is a time to look at different things that are and the journey you go on is different every year, and this is a new journey for us.
Have you already tried some of those things?
Yeah. I mean, certainly the defense is brand new, and that's a whole new thing. But on offense, yeah, we've already kind of learned a little bit about this group. It's new. Even though you don't lose a lot of guys, all it takes is one or two to have a different dynamic. And so, we're kind of on that journey now, and it's just the beginning, though.
One more thing. What do you know about this helmet that CJ is practicing with, and what can be the possibility? Is this something 10 years down the road, or is this?
I don't really know a whole lot about it other than just, what I've been told. And, they're always trying to figure out different ways to, protect our players. And, sometimes you'd like to get feedback from the players on what they see. From what I've seen, there's certainly a wider vision from the face mask. But I know that they try to get that. Same thing with some of the cleats. We'll give, a couple guys a couple different pairs of cleats to see how that reacts to their feet and those type of things. And so, guys are always trying to find different ways, and we're always trying to find different ways to keep our guys safe. And so we'll get some feedback here from those guys on what they think.
Right behind him, Adam King, WBNS 10 TV.
You talk about the journey. Is there anything maybe you've seen this spring that you wish was a little further along compared to your past springs?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think, I really have been impressed with how the defense is challenging every day and giving different looks and changing up those type of things. So that's been great. But no, I mean, I think, overall we're right where we need to be right now. But when you're right where we need to be in practice 6 of spring, you got a long way to go. I don't think we're ahead. I don't think we're behind. I think that, we just got to keep swinging.
When you look at bringing in the new defense at Jim Knowles, you're kind of halfway through spring here. Is this where you wanted him to be, and how different is watching how he's operated versus Kerry in your past?
He has a unique way, the way that they teach in their units, and it's been fun for me to sit in some of those and see how he teaches as a group, and then they break up into units. But I would say it's been nice to be around it and see the different style. Everybody has their own unique style, and I think his teaching is very efficient, and the guys grab onto it. There's a lot of teach the teacher, a lot of, you say something, they say it back to you. And it's been good so far, so we'll see.
Front row, middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Travion came in last year, obviously didn't play as a senior in high school, had a very good year. What have you seen in him this year? Do you see a difference in him at all? And what, we know his potential, but from your perspective, what's his potential?
His potential is to be as good as anybody in the country. I think he's just a year under his belt, a little bit more confidence. He's got certain things he wants to get done this spring, and has a good look in his eye. He's a very serious young man who, when there's guys around and he sees that it's going a certain way, he'll encourage them. If he sees it going another way, he'll speak up. He's got a good voice, and he sets a great standard for everybody in the building. And so I think his potential is as good as and big as anybody in the country. I think running back in the spring is a little bit of a challenge because you're not tackling as much, so that part's a little bit tricky. But in terms of protections and pad level and vision and those type of things, he's already off to a good start.
And you said you're basically on schedule, you're happy with how it's gone. What do you want to really get accomplished the rest of the spring? What needs to be accomplished?
Well, I think each individual player to get better at the things that they need to improve at. Everybody has their own type of things, and so you can get involved with scheme in this time of year, but to me it's more about the fundamentals and making sure that we're building that foundation moving forward. And so I think that's happening, but that's really what I want to see is just guys get better at their trade and get better at what they're doing. And certainly scheme matters, but more importantly, just fundamentally about hands and blocking and tackling and those type of things as we get going.
Overall, you've been happy with that?
Yeah, I think so. But this is where you see the growth. We had 2 practices, went on spring break, came back, kind of got our legs underneath us. So this week right here, you'll start to see some of that really happen.
Front row right, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Yeah, going back to the scheme situation and experimenting and stuff, when you see G. Scott with the possibility of stretching the defense that way and Evan Pryor maybe giving you a bit of a stretch this way, I mean, are those some of the things you're sort of looking at this spring that could be part and parcel that maybe you didn't quite have enough of last year? Just give me some idea of that.
Yeah, well, I think we have to figure out, how many guys deserve to be on the field. That's, kind of how it works. And we have a lot of experience coming back, but we have a lot of talented young guys that are coming on, like you're saying. Those are a few of them. And once we continue to build that, we start to figure out, okay, how can these guys best get on the field to attack a defense? And those are weapons. We have some other guys too that are built like that, and that's exciting. You know, Mitch Rossi, when he gets back, he brings a different skill set than maybe a Joe Royer, Mayan Williams, like you said. So, you know, the more of those guys we can have in the stable, the better. And we do have some really good, talented guys. So, and it isn't so much like a role, although some of it is a role. But it's also just putting guys in the best position to be successful based on their skill set. You know, not asking someone to do something they can't. Now, the more they can do, the more they can play.
But yeah, I was going to say, you almost have to establish them at their regular position before you
That's right.
can set them loose, right? I mean,
Right.
is that tough? I mean,
Yeah.
with G is still a tweener size-wise, for example. You know, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think you list the things that each guy can do, and then you put that package together. Now, the more things you can do, then the more you can play. And it's the same thing on defense. You know, if somebody's a really good pass specialist, but they can't stop the run, then guess what? They're only coming in on third down. And then if you're really good against the run, but you're not as good against the pass, then you're probably playing first, second down. If you're a really good cover guy, but you can't, play the run as good in the back end, you're probably, in a nickel situation playing against the pass. That it's the same thing on offense, and if you're a wide receiver and you can go in there and block somebody in the run game, boy, that gives us a lot of flexibility. If you're a tight end and you can go block a 7 technique, but then you can go outside and, run a route against a wide receiver, get open against a safety or a linebacker, that gives us a lot more flexibility, because when you start to scheme up, you're starting to figure out what teams are trying to do based on their personnel. And then that's the game between the coordinators. And so the more guys who can do many things, the better. Like Evan Pryor, for example, he can go run around the outside, but line up as a running back in the backfield. That gives us something. So you can see the more skill sets that guys can do, the more of a weapon they are for us.
Hey, one other quickie. When Josh Proctor is healthy and on his game, what is special about him? What did you notice the last couple of years, even in preseason last year, that just sort of sets him apart? Maybe that's unfair to say that, but I think he is, in my opinion, he is a little bit of a special guy back there. What, in your mind, what do you want to see that tells you he's back? You understand what I'm saying?
I do. I always say, like, when Josh is at his best, what does he look like? Yeah, I think first off, he's rangy. He can cover a lot of ground. He's extremely physical. He will absolutely get after you, whether it's, receivers downfield or coming up and playing the run game, blitzing. I remember in the Clemson game, the first time we played him, he got after. I forget who the tailback was. If it was Etienne. He was physical against that guy. He had that hit in the Wisconsin game to end the game. He'll come downhill and he'll play physical. And he also has really good ball skills. He can track the ball and when he's playing at his best, he's all over the place. He plays with discipline. Can really affect the game in a lot of areas, and he can get away with some things that maybe other guys can't. And that's what we're looking for out of him.
And third row right, Doug Lamerise, Cleveland.com.
You were talking about some guys thrive with the competition, some guys maybe feel it more as they're looking over their shoulder at the guy behind them. I understand at a place like this, there's competition every day. You have more than enough guys who can play. Do you coach guys a little bit different? How do you deal with the guy who says, hey man, we want to make sure we push this guy, versus maybe telling the guy, hey, like, you're good, you've got your spot, don't freak out. What's that like for you and your assistants?
Well, it's just a tough game that's played at the highest level, and you have to be tough competitively, you got to be tough physically, you got to be tough mentally to play in this game, otherwise it'll eat you alive. So that's the first part that we have to understand. That being said, certain guys, they have a little bit of a fear of failure for whatever reason that is. And so I think for a lot of those guys, you try to communicate to them, in a different way than you would somebody who just loves to compete. And if you get under their skin a little bit, that's going to bring out the best side of them. And that's coaching. There has to be certain things that are consistent across the board, but everybody's a little bit different. And I think understanding each guy is critical. But at the end of the day, it's a hard game for tough guys.
Last year, everybody knew it. You talked about it. It was a young team in a lot of ways, right? I think you could maybe feel that during the course of the season. You have a lot back. You have about as much experience back as any major Power 5 team. You're only 6 practices in. Can you feel it at all? Do you feel at all that, CJ's a second-year guy, Trevion's a second-year guy? You have some more pieces that are back. Do you feel a difference of more experience?
Yeah, but But also, I mean, these guys are not 20-year vets in the NFL. They have a year under their belt, and there's still a lot of football for them to learn. But everything they're not doing for the first time, and that's good. There's a reference point to go back to going into this season, as opposed to just total unknown of going into it, which I felt like we had last year. And when you have that, you have doubt in your mind. That's just part of it. And there's a reference point, which is important for us. But we still have a lot of football to learn, a lot of work to do moving forward.
And when you have a quarterback like CJ, who's back as a second-year starter, third year in the system, you as the head coach and the play caller, do you spend less time with him because he's more experienced and he doesn't maybe need to spend as much time with you, or do you spend more time with him because now he's getting advanced and you and CJ can almost shape this offense together? What's your time spent with CJ like?
About the same, because you have to do both of those things. But you try not to change just because it's year two. You try to continue the same mentality that we have. We have certain meetings that I'm in there, and certain meetings where I give them a little bit of space. But no, we try not to change that just based on the second year. Yeah.
Got time for one more set of questions. Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
I just wanted to follow up on Cade. Was that something that he in his move to tight end, was that something he brought up with you guys? Did you guys tap him on the shoulder and say there's an opportunity here? How does that conversation get approached?
We've had constant conversation since the last Rose Bowl, and something that we wanted to make sure that he, his leadership in the offseason that he had was excellent, unbelievable leadership, and now that he's a veteran in the program, he has a voice, and we want to put him in the best position to be successful, and it's something that there's always been conversation about it, and now that he's been there for a couple practices, we'll continue to talk about it, but he needs to focus on something for a while, in order to be successful. We can't keep bouncing around.
This roster seems like it has a few guys like that. Chips coming in, moved from running back to linebacker. You had Steele went to linebacker. There seems like a lot of guys who've been able to handle multiple roles. Is that more common now? Is that the same as it's always been? It just seems like a lot of guys have kind of had the skill sets to do multiple spots.
Well, we recruited both Steele and Chip as linebackers coming out of high school. Steele, was kind of both. We said we'll try running back, and if if the situation arises where you want to go play linebacker, that'd be great. With Chip, that's the way we recruited coming out of high school. Was a linebacker. He decided he wanted to try running back at Arizona State, but now as he came back here, he's back to linebacker. So, guys have different skill sets, and I think having the awareness of playing the other side of the ball is a good thing. They're maybe a little bit behind just in terms of experience of playing the position every day, but, the more they get under their belt, the better they'll be.
Clarifying on Josh Proctor, he's doing individual stuff. Is there a chance he'll do any team stuff at the end of spring, or is that ways off?
I don't expect him to do that. Probably just stay in individual drills. If we can get him in some teamwork, non-contact, then we'll do that.
Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, folks, we're going to open up the floor for Coach Knowles. We're going to open up Coach third row middle, Colin Gay, Rivals.
Hey, Jim. I'm curious about, one of the things Ryan just said was there seems to be a little bit of a log jam at the linebacker spot, and I'm curious